Hey, everybody, and welcome to New York Sports Rehab. I'm Mike, he's Matt, and we are here today to talk about New York sports and, in particular, those New York Jets. That's right, the New York Jets that shocked the world on Sunday. We are here today to talk about the New York Jets, a stress free show in regards to the New York Jets. And as you know by now, if you follow us at all, we were at the game on Sunday and witnessed history and possibly a new story as far as Mike White goes, the beginning of a new story. Will it be similar to that of Tom Brady? Only time will tell. But for his first start, not only did the Jets shock the world, but certainly so did Mike White. So we're going to touch on our feelings as far as just our overall trip to New York, our trip to MetLife, our feelings about New York in general, and of course, the game. And before I turn it over to Matt, I'll just tell you going into this game, my expectations were about as low as they've ever been. And I've gone to some games where the Jets were bad. I witnessed the Jets getting beat 35-0 by Pittsburgh back in the 70s to where they were losing 35-0 at the half. I've been to several Jacksonville Jaguar games against the Jets in Jacksonville where they were annihilated 40-something to nothing. And in spite of those games, I had less expectations. When I got up Sunday morning, I expected nothing positive. My thought process was, are we going to leave at halftime? Are we going to leave in the third quarter? Or will we leave sometime in the fourth quarter? I had no positive expectations. I had no motivation to go to this game. If I hadn't bought the tickets, if we hadn't bought the tickets yet, I don't know if we would have even gone. If I had an option or we had an option to exchange those tickets for another Ranger game or a Knick game, we probably would have. But in the long run, in the end, I'm so glad we didn't have those options because we witnessed a tremendous game, probably the best game I've ever witnessed out of any of my sports teams. And let's face it, I'm realistic. I know we're 2-5. It was just one win. But when you're a Jet fan in particular, and we've been through so much heartache, to win that game against a team that was the number one seed and to come from 11 down the way that we did, to win that game, it was just absolutely amazing, especially going in with no expectations whatsoever. So probably the greatest experience for myself and Matt as far as going to any sporting event, New York related, and it didn't start out that way. So that's how we kind of opened up the day with very, very, very little expectation. Now, Matt, you tell me a little bit about your perspective on the game, the city, overall, just your mindset of the whole experience.
I mean, man, it's still kind of hard to put into perspective, put into words. I was, talking to Andrew, my older brother, earlier today on the phone, and it's still quite hasn't, hit me. It still quite hasn't sunk in that not only were we there to experience, but just the magnitude and what exactly transpired. I think it's going to take some time, whether it's the end of the season or whether it's 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years, when we look back and really kind of get a solid feel for what we witnessed. Obviously, to looking into the future, we don't know exactly what's the hold, not only for the Jets but for Mike White and the franchise as a whole. But we'll start. I'll rewind a little bit. Friday night, first experience ever. Not only at a hockey game, but at Madison Square Garden, legendary Madison Square Garden, seeing the Rangers play. That was awesome. 4-0 win against the Blue Jackets. I must say, I've been to a number of baseball games. Obviously, I've been to a football game. I've been to some wild, just in the past 6 months, we went to a Mets-Braves game. Shout out to the Braves, just won the World Series. That's all I'll give them. Not going to touch on that too much. But we saw the Mets come back from down 3, end up winning the game. Electric experience. Thought, it doesn't get better than that. And then, fast forward to this past weekend, Jets, knocking off the Bengals in the most unlikely way. But the vibe in Madison Square Garden, it's different. The experience being in that arena with the Rangers, not only being successful, but with the fans being there. you're jam tight like sardines, but I'll tell you what, it is a damn good time. You know, the song after they score the goals, just the experience of being there was awesome. Obviously, kind of was more of a last minute thing in terms of going on this trip. We had the Jets game planned for a while, but that was an awesome experience. Took Saturday to recover, and then Sunday you wake up and you're taking the Uber ride there, and we're halfway thinking, are we leaving at halftime? Are we leaving in the third quarter? Gotta keep your eye on things, and we'll play it by ear. And right from the get go, honestly it did feel a little different. Obviously that first opening drive, Mike White leads the Jets down the field. They score a touchdown to go up 7-0, and that set the tone. I mean, granted they were down 11 points at one point, going in the fourth quarter, 5 minutes left, but it was ruckus, man, and I can't even begin to describe that feeling because, like you mentioned earlier, the Jets are only 2-5 right now. I can't even, fathom what that place or what that experience would have been like had they been, whether it had been a playoff game or just a late season meaningful game. But it just shows you the loyalty and the hunger of Jets fans. I mean, I'll get into the performance statistically and everything more in a second, but Jets fans are so hungry. You talk about one of the most surreal moments of being there is you've got the whole stadium, the entire stadium, everyone off their seats chanting Mike White, Mike White, Mike White. I mean, I'll never forget that. The guy put on a performance for the ages in his first career start, 405 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions that quite frankly weren't his fault at all. And I mean, it like I said, it's hard to put into words. Not only, seeing that on TV and sitting in our seats, we would have been excited because they just won the ball game. They performed well in more than one aspect, more than Mike White performed well. But being there in the stands, 8-9 rows away from the field, we got lucky. We so happened to be on the same side end of the field in which the Jets scored 3 of their 4 touchdowns. It was electric. I mean, between the fans, the game itself, coming back, like I said, it's hard to fathom. Years from now, we'll look back, and this will be a memory that I'll never forget. And hopefully, I'll be there able to top that. I think eventually we'll be able to be at a playoff game, maybe even a conference championship, maybe a playoff clinching victory. I hope in the future that's what presents itself. But just considering where we've been at Jets fan for the last decade, I cannot think of a better win. Only thing that comes close, that Week 16 matchup, Eric Decker caught that overtime touchdown against New England, in which we were also in New York for. We were up in New York for that game in 2015. We just so happened not to be at the game. We thought about going, but we didn't. But actually being in the stands, feeling the vibe of the stadium, and, the Jets, the sideline was electric. The players, the coaches, Robert Saleh was getting hyped. The players were getting the fans amped up. Like I said, I know I said it 5-6 times. It's almost unexplainable. You can't put it into words. I definitely did not see that coming. I don't think anybody saw that coming. It was the most unlikely turn of events that I think we could have expected. We went to the Rangers game on Friday, and we thought that was going to be the high note of the weekend in terms of watching our team perform. And then, fast forward 2 days, not only do they get the win, but, Mike White, the presence that he had, the leader, he led the Jets. Let's not get that mistaken. The Jets played well as a team, but Mike White led the Jets to victory. He led the Jets.
Mike White?
That Mike White. Mike effing White. Supposedly, I guess there's something going on. Mike White doesn't curse, I believe. He's against cursing, so they say Mike effing White.
We'll do it for him, though.
Yeah. There were definitely some F-bombs dropped in MetLife. Section 116 last Sunday. I'll tell you that much. There were some F-bombs dropped. Dad, you're usually a stoic kind of keeping it together kind of guy, and there were a couple times I heard you drop some F-bombs and jumping up and down on, you got a replaced hip. You would have never known it. So, I mean, just to kind of describe the weekend, we end up walking home or walking to the bus stop in downtown Manhattan in 50-degree weather and pouring rain. Saturday, Sunday, dealing with a bit of allergies and a throat issue. We get to the game, it gets going. for 4 hours, I was telling my brother this earlier. For 4 hours, nothing was wrong. For 4 hours, my throat didn't hurt. I wasn't stuffed up. I wasn't nothing because I was so amped up. It was such an experience. It's indescribable. I mean, it is indescribable being there. The only thing I can say is, looking forward, you want to see that more. You want there to be more meaning. I mean, there was enough meaning behind it. We live in Georgia. It's very rare that not only we get to go up there to New York together, but that we get to go and experience a Jets game, and for them to win in the fashion they did, unbelievable. You hope that the team can further work off of this jolt of motivation or execution. The offense looked. It looked like we were watching a professional football team, which is very rare in the sense of watching the New York Jets offense over the past 3-4 years. So all in all, my feelings of the city, the game, more everything and more that you could have asked for. Going up there, it was like you said, no expectations, and you get a 2 or 3 day span of just electricness. You get the Rangers win, and then Saturday, obviously taking it easy, preparing for the game. And I don't think nobody knew, nor did we know what we were preparing for come Sunday, because that performance, from Mike White to the defense, all across the board was, unimaginable. And I couldn't be happier to say, that I was there. And for the rest of my life, thank God we got cell phones and, videos and cameras, because, being there is one thing, being able to capture these things and look back, and I'll be able to show my kids and you'll be able to show your grandkids. And it's undescribable. It still hasn't sat in deep down, and one day it will. And, I'll be able to describe it a little bit more.
Yeah. It was a great experience. And, just going back to starting with the Rangers on Friday, it's funny because Madison Square Garden, inside Madison Square Garden, it's like a different world to some degree to outside on the streets. People outside, everyone's kind of in a hurry to get to where they got to get to. There isn't much interaction going on, especially at that time, 5, 6 o'clock in the evening on a Friday. People trying to catch your trains or buses, whatever the case may be. Not a whole lot of communication. And you get inside, it's like almost like a community in there, a family of Ranger fans. And everybody was very friendly. People that I've never met before were tapping me on the shoulder, wanting to high five, fist pump, whatever, throughout the game. It was a raucous crowd. There was a lot of alcohol being consumed. In fact, up in the blue seats, and this is the first for me, the only refreshments they sell up there is alcohol. But to their credit, they stopped serving in the third period, which is great. But in spite of the fact that it was a raucous crowd, they're serving alcohol and people are drinking, people still kept some decorum. People would say, "Excuse me, I'm sorry." If they bumped into you, they apologized. There was nothing going on in terms of any kind of confrontation or nastiness. And I really recognize that, because you kind of put them all together. You've got alcohol, you got a large crowd, you got a younger crowd, people getting raucous, and you just assume it's going to be a bad situation. It wasn't like that at all. Every time someone bumped into me, I got an "Excuse me, I'm sorry, can I get by?" And so it really was kind of like a whole different world within New York itself.
Yeah.
Right there. I never realized how tight and low the seats were. And you get a workout just in getting up numerous times during the game from those seats, especially when you're as old as I am. And that was something new for me. I hadn't been to Madison Square Garden since I was a kid, and that was for the circus a long time ago. So it's been that long. So I had no idea that the tight fit that it was. And I was thinking that's going to be trouble in itself, people being so tight like that. But it's almost as if it comes to be expected. And the only way people survive in that situation, so tight, so low, so cramped, is that everybody is polite and respectful, but at the same time can have a good time, cheer the team on, fist pump everybody. After the game, people were hugging each other. It was just great. And from a playing standpoint, the Rangers probably played their best overall complete game of the year. And goaltending wise, it was almost like a changing of the guard, where in the past we would hear the chants of Henrik from the blue seats, we heard the chants of Igor. And it's kind of like a passing of the torch. And right now, Igor Shesterkin, and I don't know, he gave up a few goals yesterday, which was surprising. But going into that game, he was allowing under 1 goal a game and was, I believe, in the lead as far as all goaltenders go, as far as goals per game. I was surprised because through 2 periods yesterday, it was 2-0, and he gave up 2 in the third and then 1 in overtime, but he's still having a great year. So to me, it's kind of like the game symbolized almost to some degree the passing of the torch from Henrik Lundqvist to Igor Shesterkin, and the crowd recognized that and saluted with the Igor chants.
Yeah.
So now we kind of fast forward to Sunday, thinking that that was going to probably be the highlight of our weekend. Again, I talked about earlier how, I didn't have high expectations. But, and that's where I'm not looking to put down other fans' teams, but a lot of teams, their fans would have packed it in already. Being 1-5, losing 54-13, but you wouldn't know it. You would think going there, even before the game started, that this game really meant something. And that alone just changed your mindset. You automatically changed your mindset, started getting into it. When the crowd acknowledged C.J. Mosley during the warm-ups with a standing ovation, you felt that. And by the time the game started, there was more electricity in the air. The funny thing is, from what I hear from other people, the stadium wasn't full, and there were quite a few empty seats up top, but we didn't know that. You wouldn't know it because from where we were in our section and all the surrounding sections to our side and in front of us, I felt like it was a packed house. You would never know, and it was just a raucous crowd. And I think what really changed everything, that the Jets won the toss. They took the ball, they marched down the field, and it scored an impressive touchdown on our end. And from that point on, they kind of had us hooked. Yeah. Now, a lot of teams would have taken that, hey, okay, we scored first, great. But when you haven't scored a single point all year in the first quarter, you get fed that crumb or those few crumbs, you take it and you run with it.
Yep.
And that's what we did. And that kind of set the tone. And the Jets from there managed to compete the whole game. They shot themselves in the foot several times, but every time they did, and you thought Cincinnati now would run away with it, the Jets were resilient and they hung into the game. And I said all along that if the Jets went into the fourth quarter 7 or less behind, we would be happy with that. And they were playing tough. And so that kept us in the whole entire game. And as the game wore on, you could see that the crowd was just so appreciative of the fact they were playing a competitive game against the #1 seed, and everybody fed off that. And we were kind of all in a no-lose situation. Even when the Jets went down by 11, I think if we lost that game, everybody would have at least left saying, hey, that was a great game, though. At least we got our money's worth. We had fun. We enjoyed it. We saw some improvement. But the Jets rewarded us. They gave us everything else was gravy, and we got that gravy. They put gravy on those crumbs for us. And then coming back, when was the last time, #1, you saw a quarterback play a game at the level that Mike White did? You probably have to go back to 2008 or 9 when Brett Favre was the quarterback. I believe he threw for 6 touchdown passes in one game. And as far as 400 yards go in a game, you got to go back to Vinny Testaverde 20 years ago. So we're seeing stuff that we haven't seen in a long time.
I've never seen.
Yeah. So that was a first. And so the fans fed off that. And when the Jets went down by 11 and then marched down the field and scored and cut it to 4, again, the gravy was being poured right there. We thought it was over. Hey, we got a game. If nothing else, we might cover the point spread. And then the Jets had a defensive stop, and they get the ball back again. And lo and behold, they drive and they score.
Yeah.
And, we're figuring, okay, great. We're probably not going to get this 2-point conversion, but hey, we got the lead. Then, they have the Philly special and they score and give us, and the crowd was just going records. It was like, what else could you possibly give us right now? You gave us a quarterback that threw for 400 yards, who's never started the game. You let us come back from an 11-point deficit in the fourth quarter. You let us score in a 2-point conversion. We're in heaven. We've got it all, right? No, we get even more. All of a sudden, the football gods decide to give us a penalty against the Bengals at the end of the game. Yes, it was a questionable call. I'm not going to deny and say that wasn't a penalty. And of course, all the haters that we know out there have jumped all over that. But I want to know, where were those haters when the Jets got called for roughing the passer against the Falcons? When Quincy Williams, I believe it was, clean, textbook, picture-perfect hit, goes for the numbers, slides his head to the side, takes the quarterback down, rolls to the side, and they give us a 15-yard penalty, which then results in the Falcons keeping the ball. And, of course, when you give Matty Ice more time, he's going to score. Nobody complained about that, though. During this game, we had a touchdown on an earlier pass to Keelan Cole that was called back. And to me, looking at the review of that, it was close. But again, you got to remember that the call was touchdown. To me, there was inconclusive evidence to overturn that. But guess what? The refs did. But when the game was over, the haters only wanted to touch on the fact that we won the game because helmet to helmet was called, and it shouldn't have been, because I believe it was Ty Johnson lowered his head, causing the contact. And yes, that may be the case. But if you watch the Jets like we watch the Jets, more times than not, the Jets are on the short end of the stick of that. And I can go back to the Safarian Jenkins call a couple times a couple of years ago. Remember that in the end zone. Jets fans know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened.
And there's so many. As bad as the Jets have been, their luck has been just as bad. And it seems like sometimes the refs are looking at the green and white and forgetting about the other team. So at the end of the day, you know what? I'm okay with it. They missed the call. I'm not going to take it away. They won the game. And if the Bengals were so great, and they are the mighty Bengals, and the Jets are the worst team in the NFL, it shouldn't have come back down to that anyways. As far as I'm concerned, the Jets not only stood toe-to-toe with the Bengals, they outplayed them. And if the Jets had lost that game in the end and Burrow had gotten the ball back, I still would have said the Jets probably outplayed them, but lost the game because of a couple of turnovers there earlier on.
Yeah.
So I'm ecstatic for the win. I'm realistic about it. Didn't expect it. But from a standpoint of the fans, everybody, young, old, in between, you can see they went the game. After the game, everybody was so ecstatic and so happy. And just for a few hours, it probably changed people's lives before they got to get back to whatever. And that's the great thing about sports. And I'm not going to apologize for being 2-5 and being so excited. Because, again, the haters will say, Jet fans are pathetic. You think they won the Super Bowl. They're only 2-5. Yeah, that might be our Super Bowl. If that's the best we get, that's what we get. We don't pack it in. Because I'll tell you what, I saw some smirks on the Bengals fans that were up by 11 as they got up out of their seat with an arrogant, pompous attitude as if they didn't have to stay any longer because they knew they had the game won.
Yep.
And I wish they'd been there to see the end because, of course, it didn't work out that way. So overall, great experience, great overall weekend, great from a standpoint of us as father and son, and just from a standpoint of giving the Jets something, just that little crumb and some gravy to enjoy for a short period of time.
Yeah.
So from a standpoint of New York, a standpoint of family, a standpoint of just enjoyment and getting something we didn't expect, just tremendous overall. Okay. Yeah. So now getting to the game itself, and then we'll finish with this, Matt. I'm going to let you take it. Break it down. Give me the pros and cons of coaching, offense, and defense, and special teams as well in a nutshell, and then I'll give you mine, and we'll close things out.
Okay. Well, from a coaching standpoint, by far the best performance we've seen from not only Saleh defensively, but Mike LaFleur up in the booth. We didn't know this at the time. Zach Wilson's personal quarterback coach, John Beck, was actually on the sidelines and has further since been hired. He's going to be with the team for the rest of the year, which will pretty much what he's doing is he's stepping into that role of rest in peace, Greg Knapp, I want to say it was. Knapp. He was pretty much the premises of that hire was he's going to be the voice of reason on the sideline, on the field, with LaFleur up in the booth. Well, now with Beck down there, we saw that, and LaFleur, you see this all over Twitter. He didn't call a different offense. It was the same exact offense, but we saw the execution to where he was able to give us these Philly special, the little trick gadget plays here and there. And he called an excellent game. His greatest offensive game plan since becoming offensive coordinator of the New York Jets. And then when you talk about the defensive side of the ball, I mean, Saleh and Ulbrich, they brought it to the table today or Sunday when it came to that first goal line stop. I mean, the Jets, like you mentioned it, not only did they shoot themselves in the foot, they gave the Bengals 2 possessions in the red zone before the Bengals offense even had the chance to touch the ball. I mean, through turnovers. So, when it comes to a coaching standpoint, by far the best product we've seen since this new regime has came in and stepped in with Saleh. You saw him pumped on the sideline. When they got blown out by the Patriots, not exactly happy with his, not really getting amped up or not really sticking up for a sense for Zach Wilson in that late hit. But what we saw Sunday is what, I think all Jets fans not only want to see, but wanted to see from the second he was named the head coach, fiery. I remember when he threw the challenge flag, he was literally standing maybe 20 feet in front of us, the challenge flag on that Ty Johnson touchdown that was ruled a touchdown. He threw that thing about 10, 15 yards. He was amped up watching it, and the Jets fans loved it. So from the coaching standpoint, if I had to give him a letter grade, I'm like Ray Lucas. I don't really do A's, so I'm going to give him a B+. I'll go B+. I want to see some more out of him. I want to see more Elijah Moore on end arounds, more Elijah Moore, more Denzel Mims as well downfield. We saw him a number of times. He was targeted 3 times. In fact, he dropped a touchdown in the end zone, but only 3 targets. I would like to see that up to 6, maybe 7, maybe 8, and then some purely designed touches for Elijah Moore. He had, I want to say, 6 for 64, but I want to see those screens. He's the guy. We've seen the Jets run screens since we've started being a fan of the team, and they're throwing it to guys like Chaz Schillings and the guys that had no business being on the team. Now we got a guy who can catch the ball, take it to the house at any time. Let's get that. So I'll give them a B+. Defensively, they were amazing. And then you talk about the offensive, the players itself. I mean, you see it right here. Forgive my language, but Mike fucking White. That's what he did. You can't, you don't top that performance, especially in your first career start. I mean, the guy was poised the whole time. He got knocked out with an injury, came back, and still got his team, put his team in position to win. From an offensive standpoint, personnel wise, I mentioned Mims, mentioned Moore. Crowder with a quietly very productive game. Michael Carter, let's talk about him. This guy has stud written all over him. I want to say 154 total yards, ran the ball, angry, caught the ball, had a few tips and a few drops, one tip that led to an interception. But, I mean, this guy is a weapon. He's only 5'8", so I think he might have an inch on Andrew, but he's out there making really good plays. And, he's the type of guy that where the running back lifespan, you mentioned it, so short, but we got this guy as a rookie. You can only hope that we got at least 3 to 5 more years of him being a productive, healthy NFL running back. Pair him up with a guy like Ty Johnson, who also looked, when he got the ball in his hands, neither two of them were going down easy. Johnson fighting for extra yards on that touchdown. You talked about the receivers already, and then I got to show some love to the offensive line. Elijah Vera Tucker looked awesome. Font knocked out with an injury. Adoga comes in there, Chuma Adoga, draft pick out of USC a couple years ago. Couldn't even tell that Font wasn't in there. I mean, the guy stepped up, had a couple, I think he had 1 or 2 penalties that kind of set the Jets back a little bit, but he did his job. GVR and McGovern, you know what you're going to get. If they're average, you're happy with it, and that's about what they were. They were average. Morgan Moses definitely is that veteran presence on that offensive line, and they did what they needed to do from that opening drive. I love the little pitch concepts they had. They did that all game, whether it was the fake pitch, play action, pitch to the left, end around. You saw it on the Philly special. So overall, offensively, coaching and, execution-wise, I'll give him a B+, A-. Couldn't have asked for more. 34 points. You predicted 35-31. I do want to shout that out as well. But 34 points. First 30-point performance we've seen from the Jets since, let's see if I can remember. I can't remember exactly, but I want to say
Probably
it's
2 years. I
I
don't. They
want to say
scored the two
it's
games they won last year. They put some points up,
they
so it
did
could have
it.
been
They
last year.
I know it wasn't last year because Gase they didn't put up 30 points plus with Gase at all. So I want to say it was pre 2019. So it must have been 2018 or it was that 2019
Right.
tail end of the season when they went on that stretch. Defensively, major shout out to C.J. Mosley. Major shout out to Gerard Davis. We went from having a D-F linebacker room in New England to solid B. I mean, those two guys itself. Talk about Del'Shawn Phillips. If he and Quincy Williams are your number one, number two guy, you're in trouble. But if they're your number three, number four serviceable linebackers in the NFL, you got to be happy with that. Gerard Davis quietly made his debut and quietly made a heck of a contribution. C.J. Mosley, you can describe him as a leader. You can describe him as an alpha. He is all of the above. He makes a world of difference. He might be the most valuable player on this Jets team, if we're being honest, at, offensive, defensively, special teams. Without him, you can definitely tell. Shout out to the DBs, Bryce Hall, Brandon Eccles. Eccles did look a bit lost to begin the game. I got to be honest, when it was covering Chase or whether it was covering Higgins, looked a bit frustrated at times. But Bryce Hall, I want to say, when Bryce Hall was targeted, gave up 3 receptions for 34 yards, no touchdowns. The guy is quietly becoming a number one. I'm not ready to call him shut down, but a number one corner that week in, week out is going to, make you confident in who he's covering. I do want to say the Jets were not doing that, you cover number one, you cover number two. I want to say they were playing right, left coverage the whole time with Eccles playing on the left side and Hall playing on the right side. So Eccles did give up that touchdown on that left side to Hall. We saw Higgins beat them a couple times, but that was largely due to Ashton Davis, who I don't want to get into too much because he's a complete liability. I want to say 71% of Joe Burrow's total yards passing-wise were in the direction towards Ashton Davis's coverage. So obviously we need some help back there. Marcus May, kind of quiet game, but he did his job and he did what he was expected to do. Huge shout out Quinnen Williams. And last but not least, Shaq Lawson with let me know if you hear something more Jets than this. Finally, you get their first interception, and it's from a defensive lineman, but it couldn't have came at a bigger time. Led to the game-winning touchdown and 2-point conversion. Shaq Lawson with the tip and the interception to secure it. Lost in the mix. That was probably one of the top 3 biggest moments of the day, and I know we lost it at that point because not only were the Jets already in red zone, but they had just scored. Crowd was into it. I want to say there was about 4 minutes left in the game. We had it, me and you in the stands talking about where this is. We get our pick. We get our pick here. We get our pick. Never got it, and then we finally got it on the second to last defensive stand. Special teams wise, I hate to be a negative Nancy, but we gotta find somebody other than Matt Amendola. The Jets' offensive miscues and offensive struggles have hidden how I don't want to call the guy bad, but he's not a good NFL kicker. I don't think he's the type of guy that you can rely on. You mentioned it. I can't remember whether it was at the game or in the airport. You said the Jets are probably going to lose a game at some point or be in a closer game than they should be due to Matt Amendola at some point this season, whether it's, against the Jags or the Texans down the road. The guy just doesn't seem consistent, doesn't seem like he carries that confidence that, successful NFL kicker does. But like I said, don't want to harp on the negative too much. This is a stress-free, happy show. Overall, I couldn't be happier. Like I said, I was expecting 28-0 at halftime, and for the team to win 34-31, offense and defense executed how we expect them to or how we want them to. Can't get any better than that. I will say, big test coming up tomorrow. Indianapolis, short week on the road. Thursday night football. Colts got a good defense. We're going to learn a lot about this Jets team. We learned a lot Sunday. On a happy note, we're going to learn a lot, win or lose, tomorrow night when we watch that team. We're going to learn a lot about the coaching staff. We're going to learn a lot about Mike White, and we're going to learn a lot about the team and the defense, especially as a whole. So I'm looking forward to it. In terms of last Sunday, final thing I'll say, great experience. And from, judging the team-wise, I couldn't be happier with what they put on film. And I think if they, week in, week out, they play like that for the remainder of the year, I'd be happy if they were in the hunt, and I think that would put them in position to remain that in the hunt for that final wild card spot. So, like I said, couldn't be happier. Exceeded my expectations exponentially, and I just hope they can keep the ball rolling.
Yeah. I'll break it down. You did a good job of breaking it down, and I agree to the most part. I'll just touch on maybe one little thing on each particular element of their game and kind of how it ties into the Colts game coming up, and then I'll close things out. Going back first to the offense, I think it really does make a difference having LaFleur up, in the booth, and it's just not by coincidence.